Downsizing in retirement seems like a no-brainer, but is it right for everyone, especially in today's real estate environment? So let's talk about it this week here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts. Welcome into Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts with CPA and personal financial specialist Phil Putney. Now let's get rolling with today's show. Hey everybody, welcome into the podcast. Thanks for hanging out. Back this week, Phil. I'm back with you, buddy. How are you?
Doing good. Glad to have you back in the chair.
Yeah, man. How did my cohort do? Did he do a good job for you last week?
He did a good job. Good job.
Good.
Yep.
Glad to be back and chatting with you. And we're going to talk downsizing today, and just common beliefs, maybe dispel some of those or maybe misbeliefs. Yeah. And just kind of see, especially in the teaser, as I mentioned, the housing environment's been really interesting the last couple of years. So
yeah.
Downsizing
makes that decision a little bit more complex than
it's not the no-brainer it might have been before. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So let's get into it a little bit. Common points to kind of tackle with this. Typically, it's like lower expenses,
right?
Smaller house footprint to take care of, stuff like that. What's your thoughts with your clients and things you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, it is a very common discussion we have with a lot of clients, that, hey, we're in the 4-bedroom colonial, we've raised our kids in, and oftentimes what comes up is it's a colonial. So, they want to make sure they're on one level so that as they age, they don't have to worry about the stairs with the bedroom and bathrooms. I mean, so that's
the knees don't like it as much, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of times what maybe starts the discussion, and sometimes it's just, hey, this house is way too big. I don't want to deal with cleaning and maintaining it anymore. We don't need the space.
Yeah.
So let's downsize. So, I mean, that's kind of the general thought. Sometimes it's with the thought of, well, yeah, then it'll help reduce expenses, but that generally doesn't lead the charge. Usually it's more either a need because, one of the spouses can no longer maneuver the stairs or planning ahead, so to speak, or sometimes it's a matter of, hey, our kids are no longer in the area. They've all got jobs and moved and, there's no reason for us to be here. So let's go live next to one of the kids.
Right.
Yeah. A little bit more central.
So how does it play with the equity conversation in that, right? So, okay, we're thinking about selling the house, and we're going to get another one. So we're going to use the money for that. I know there's different, every state's got some differences if you're selling a house and getting another one and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But with the current environment, and you break it down however you want, it's enticing on the one hand because you're like, wow, the value of my house is like way up.
Right.
But what do I get or what can I find and get for what we need? And is that price swap, workable in today's environment?
Right. Oh, and that's really the key is that, I mean, very often when I've had clients start to walk through this process and we work the numbers with them is that this concept of quote unquote downsizing, going from that, 3,500, 4,000 square foot colonial down to something that's on a single floor, maybe 2,000, 2,500 square foot.
Right.
You're thinking, oh, it's going to be less expensive. And when you start to run the numbers, it's not. You know? I mean, first of all, going colonial to ranch, it's not a dollar for dollar square footage. The ranch is going to be more expensive per square foot than a colonial. That's the first thing to consider. Mm-hmm. But just even in this environment, it can be more expensive even to go to a lesser home for a lot of reasons. Number one, at least in Michigan, the way it works, in the biggest consideration that I think often gets overlooked is property taxes.
Right.
So in Michigan, we have this provision that once you buy a house, the taxable value, which is what's used as the tax base, can only go up a certain percentage each year. So you're capped.
Okay.
So even though the housing market has done really phenomenal the past few years, your property taxes haven't increased as high, which is good while you're there. Definitely. But the downside is looking at now buying a new house that resets the base. So now you go from this lower base, even though maybe the house you're buying is similar to that in value to the house you're selling, because of that, depending on how long you've owned it, but because of that cap, you may be at a substantially reduced property tax than what you would be in a current market. So I've seen many times where that's the case, and we start to run the math to say, okay, well, property values are pretty similar.
Right.
But the reality is your property taxes are going to go up 40, 50%. I've seen it double in some cases
Wow.
if they've
Yeah.
lived there a long time. I mean, if you've lived in the same house for 30 years, and it's that cap rate is kept it at this low property tax value.
Yeah.
I mean, it can be a substantial hit all of a sudden when things get uncapped. So
Is that something that a lot of states employ? I know you do
every state's a little bit different.
but
Yeah, a lot of states do something similar. Some of them will increase it every year based on market value.
Okay.
So it's just something if you're considering, make sure you're talking to the realtor about.
Right.
And when you're looking at the new house, don't just look at what that person's paying in property taxes or even what the taxable value is, because that's irrelevant. Again, that's based on when they bought it.
Yeah.
So you really have to do the math and know how the millages work and kind of figure out yourself that, hey, if I'm buying it for $400,000, then my taxable value in Michigan is roughly half. So $200,000. Here's the current millages. So this is what I can expect to pay in property tax.
Gotcha.
To really get a better picture of what that looks like.
And that's not something I recall real estate agents really talking to you about much. So
no,
maybe a really good one on the ball might know some of that stuff.
A really good one I've seen occasionally talk about that, but more often than not, they're, what's on the listing is here's what their property taxes are.
Yeah.
Which if they bought it 2 or 3 years ago, probably is pretty close, but if they've been in the house 10, 15, 20 years, well, again, it's going to be at least in Michigan, a substantially reduced value. So,
well, we're into the second week of September here, Phil, for this episode. And I believe just around the corner, the Fed is expected to meet and highly expected to drop the rates.
We'll see what happens, but
we'll see what happens.
Lowering rates,
but that's obviously been a big sticking point for the last couple of years too, right? Yes. So that's one of the reasons why downsizing has been kind of that, and the price of homes. It's kind of been like, oh well, this is not really worth it to change, but we'll see what happens. It could be ticking down. And that could change things. So that's something to factor in clearly as well.
Yes. I mean, that's definitely another factor, especially if you still have a mortgage on your current home.
Mm-hmm. You got a 3.2. You didn't want to switch and get a 6.2.
Well, exactly. I mean, you've got to figure in that number to see, okay, well, you're doubling the interest rate. What did that do to the payment for how long? And just run that math to see especially if you were thinking of it's going to lower my monthly expenses.
Yeah.
May not be the case, right? So just understand that math. If you're just truly swapping equity, not dealing with a mortgage, I mean, that could be another scenario. You don't have to worry about it. But something else to consider too in the whole concept of swapping equity, it is not truly just a swap because there are expenses on both the sale and the purchase. I mean, you've got real estate commission. In Michigan, you got transfer taxes and all these other things. So my kind of estimation typically on a property sale in Michigan, at least between the real estate commissions and everything else, is you're going to lose at least 10%.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I mean, if you sell it for $4, now you only have $360 to go into a new house. You right off the bat, just by doing the transaction, lost that 10%.
Yeah.
Not to mention just the pure expenses of moving, right? I mean, you've got the cost of moving, you've got the new house you're moving into. And of course, the furniture isn't going to be the same. You got to get new furniture and you got to paint.
Potentially,
there's all these other expenses to consider. So it's not something you want to just say, we're going to, I think we can do this. It's equal value. It's all going to work out. Make sure
and that's,
run the math.
Yeah, that's typically a common, a common disbelief. And we'll touch on some of the non-money stuff in a second, like you just mentioned. I mean, I guess it's still money buying furniture, but one of the other things is, sometimes people kind of think, well, this will help with my estate plan because I'm downsizing. Is that factual?
Not necessarily. I mean, the house is a house, right? As long as it's titled the right way, you either have it titled in a trust or, like in Michigan, we can use something called a ladybird deed. Again, not giving legal advice, talk to your attorney. But it's a way of attaching beneficiaries to a house so it doesn't end up in probate.
Okay.
So it really doesn't make that big of a difference.
And it's one of those things, again, kind of people I think maybe feel like it does. I guess if you went to a condo from a house, but I mean, it still has value.
Yeah, it still has value. I mean, it depends on, what, I guess if you're thinking estate planning, it depends on what you think the kids might do with the house, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, if this is the house that the kids grew up in, and ultimately they want to move back into that house. Well, yeah, I mean, that might be part of it, but, from a general estate planning standpoint, yeah, there's really no pros or cons. From a tax standpoint, if you're selling and it's your primary residence, for married couples, you can exclude up to $500,000 a gain.
Right.
So typically for most people, you're not going to run into a taxable gain situation moving from one house to another.
Right.
So that would be the only potential quote unquote estate planning, is if you had a $2 million house, right, and you only paid $500 for it. Well, yeah, now if you sell it, you're going to have a portion of that gain excluded, but there's still going to be a huge tax burden versus if you left it in the estate, it's going to get the step up.
Okay. All right.
So that might be the only estate planning type concept.
Gotcha. Yeah. And again, definitely, these are all pieces that you want to make sure you're pulling together before you just kind of go with some of these other ones that I have that usually gets the ball rolling, right?
Right.
It's right. Well, if we downsize, do we have the space for the grandkids? And, and you start to get into more of the emotional kind of conversation.
Side of it. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
and you got too many grandkids, so you can't do it.
Yeah. We'd have to buy the whole condo complex. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely emotional factors that play into this. You're maybe selling the house that your kids were raised in, and that might be hard, right? You don't want to give up those memories and things that are in that house. I mean, kind of a funny story, personal story for that. We did this not too long ago where we went from the colonial down to a ranch. And I mean, it was emotional because it was where all our kids had the last couple had been born and raised, and, most of them had spent all their growing up life. So there's a lot of memories in that house, neighborhood. But at the end of the day, it was the right decision, and it was fine. Who had the hardest time with the whole decision was my daughter. Because she's like, wait a minute, you're doing what? You're selling the house?
Yeah.
You can't sell the house. I want that.
Yeah. Yeah. Our kid did the same thing. And it's not even, it was at the time we went from the house that she was mostly raised in to the newer one, which had more cool things. But she's like, well, I'm an adult now. Well, she was like just 18, but she's like, but you're selling my childhood bedroom. And I'm like,
exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, for them, for the parents, there's a lot of memories too, but I think for some of the kids, there's a lot more memories. So again, I mean, does that play into it? That's all those non-financial factors that you have to sit down and have a discussion to see, okay, is it worth, the pros of moving for all the reasons we talked about, giving up that family home. So
the Tax Smart Retiree is your comprehensive guide to mastering tax efficiency for a flourishing retirement. You will find indispensable advice and actionable strategies designed to enhance tax savings, maximize Social Security benefits, protect against market volatility, and develop a customized retirement plan. To get your free ebook, click the link in the show notes of today's episode and download your copy of the Tax Smart Retiree right now.
Yeah, then you can factor in some things like the social structure of the neighborhood. Maybe you've been in a long time. Maybe you like your neighbors, maybe you don't. Maybe there's pros and cons to that, So a lot of little pieces.
You've been in a neighborhood for that many years, chances are the neighbors that you had growing up are no longer there. Maybe the neighborhood's turned over. So a lot of times that's the factor of, it's not the same neighborhood, so we're moving on. Not that it's bad, but it's just not what it was. And I mean, there's all sorts of factors. We talked kind of in the beginning of, the kids have grown now and maybe they've moved all over the country. So you no longer have a reason to stay here.
Yeah.
And figure out where, or maybe they've all moved out to, to Florida, California, somewhere warmer. And you're thinking, wait a minute, here I'm in Michigan. What am I doing here? I want to, move where the kids are. So there's a lot of factors that come into that decision. So.
It used to be an old joke, and it's probably been every state, but I remember first really hearing it being in Michigan, that Michigan had 2 seasons, right? Construction and winter.
That's right. That's right.
But I feel like every state feels like they say that.
They've got something. Yeah.
Because it seems like every state's constant road construction or whatever. But at the end of the day, Phil, is it an emotional question first or a financial one? How should one maybe approach it?
I would approach the emotional side first. Because that, any financial decision, I always say there's 2 rules that govern, right? There's the head rule and the tummy rule. The head is all the finances. I can give you all that.
Yeah.
I can tell you the pros and the cons and all the math behind it and what it's going to look like financially. What I can't do is answer the emotional, that tummy rule side. And at the end of the day, that's what rules, right? If it makes sense financially, but you just can't do it for whatever the reason. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's just not something that you're comfortable doing emotionally, then don't do it.
Okay.
Right. So I mean, I would say lead with that first, have that discussion first to see, is this something that we're willing to give up that, family home? Are the kids okay with it? And does that really play into your decision? I mean, there's all these different factors to consider. But.
Yeah. At the end of the day, right, downsizing is not just, the real estate decision. It's the financial and the emotional and the dynamic and all that kind of stuff and what you want to do with your golden years. So make sure you're having those conversations. As always, if you got some questions, need some help, how it relates to you specifically, sit down with a qualified financial professional like Phil. You can reach out to him. We've got links in the show descriptions below. You can call him at 248-888-7530. That's also on the screen as well. And don't forget to subscribe to us at Apple, Spotify, of course, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button, thumbs up, and notification bell so you catch new episodes when they come out. Certainly helps support the channel and gets you new content as we drop them pretty much weekly. So, Phil, thanks for hanging out and breaking it down as always, my friend. I appreciate you.
You too. Glad to hear you're back and feeling better. So.
I'm feeling a little better. Yeah, so we should be good to go. I appreciate it. You guys have yourself a great week out there, and we'll catch you next time here on Phil's Tax Hacks and Other Retirement Facts.
Investment advisory services offered through AFS Wealth Management. The content of this program is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. Investments and/or investment strategies involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. There is no assurance that any investment strategy will achieve its objectives.